Hi, everybody. It's Friday. This is your Read Aloud for Friday. Being taped on Wednesday. Kind of funny, but that's how it works here at home with the video stuff. So, today we're going to be reading another story about a famous woman who helped break down barriers for women in our country and for women around the world. You're seeing that many people who did great things had to overcome barriers. What overcoming a barrier means that they had something really tough that they had to get through, that they had to work through, that they had to overcome to do the thing that they wanted to do. This person is no different than any of the other people that we've read about, whether it was with Black History Month or like with Jackie Robinson and the story that you heard yesterday from my daughter with Sonia Sotomayor. They had to overcome some difficult things to get to what they wanted to do. Today we're going to be reading the story called America's Champion Swimmer, Gertrude Ederle. This is about a woman who, in the early 1900s, was told, you can't do things because you're a girl. So girls, especially girls, this is a great story of how you shouldn't let people tell you you can't because you are a girl, because you're black, because you're Latino, because you're from Mexico, because you have brown eyes or black hair, or you have white skin, you can't do that. No, there's no barriers. Those are barriers that people try to put up to stop you from doing something. I want you to think about what are the barriers that you might have to overcome. This is a barrier. Do you understand that? Right now, this whole distance learning thing, this is a barrier that we have to overcome. You need to keep learning, even though it's not easy, that figuring out Seesaw has not been fun. Maybe picking up those packets has been hard for your family. Those are all barriers that you have to overcome in order to be successful and to do the things that you want to do later in life. So let's read about America's champion swimmer, Gertrude Ederle. I hope I'm saying that right. The story, okay, it's the first page. You see her putting on her, looks like her goggles. She's got her swim cap on. So it's written by David A. Adler, illustrated by Terry. I can't read it backwards. I'm going to try to read it from the side. Widener. Okay, Terry Widener. For Mom, a real champion. That's a dedication page. Okay, here's the first pictures. I'm going to swing around now and I'm going to read it. Can't read it backwards in the camera, so I'm going to swing around and read it to you. Here we go. In 1906, so it's 1906, a long time ago, over 100 years ago, women were kept out of many clubs and restaurants. In most states, they were not allowed to vote. Many people felt a woman's place was in the home, but Gertrude Ederle's place was in the water. Gertrude Ederle was born on October 23, 1906. She was the third of 6 children and was raised in New York City, where she lived in an apartment next to her father's butcher shop. Her family called her Gertie. Most everyone else called her Trudy. You might have a nickname, something that people call you, like Judah. I know. That's Judea, if you didn't know that. There she is. Look at her. Looks like her dad's got her tied to a rope. What's going on there? Trudy spent her early years playing on the sidewalks of New York. It wasn't until she was 7 that she had her first adventure in the water. While visiting her grandmother in Germany, Trudy fell into a pond and nearly drowned. After that near disaster, Trudy's father was determined to teach her to swim. For her first lesson, he tied one end of a rope to Trudy's waist and held on to the other end. He put Trudy into a river and told her to paddle like a dog. So that's what he's doing. He's trying to teach her how to swim. Trudy mastered the dog paddle. She joined her older sister Margaret and the other children in the water and copied their strokes. Soon, Trudy swam better than any of them. So she just got in and did it. She just practiced by watching other people. From that summer on, it was hard to keep Trudy out of the water. She loved to swim. At the age of 13, she became a member of the New York Women's Swimming Association and took lessons there. At 15, Trudy won her first big race. That's pretty young to win a big race. The next year, she attempted to be the first woman to swim more than 17 miles from Lower Manhattan to Sandy Hook, New Jersey. When Trudy slowed down, her sister Margaret yelled, "Get going, lazy bones!" And Trudy did. She finished in just over 7 hours, and she beat the men's record. People were beginning to notice Gertrude Ederle. Newspapers described her courageous, determined, modest, and poised. Poised means she held herself very well. She did a great job of presenting herself well to other people. They called her the most perfect swimmer. Trudy's mother said she was just a plain homegirl. A homegirl, I like it. In 1924, this plain homegirl was good enough to make the U.S. Olympic swimming team. Trudy won 3 medals at the Games in Paris. Her team won more points than all the other countries' swimming teams combined. So they whipped their backsides. They beat them good. There she is in the pool. Looks like maybe a coach. By 1925, Trudy had set 29 U.S. and world records. She was determined to take on the ultimate challenge, the English Channel. Many had tried to swim the more than 20-mile wide body of cold, rough water that separates England from France. But only 5 men and no women had ever made it all the way across. Many people were sure Trudy couldn't do it. A newspaper editorial declared that Trudy wouldn't make it, and that women must admit that they would remain forever the weaker sex. It didn't matter to Trudy what people said or wrote. She was going to swim the channel. So she was. Some man wrote that she shouldn't do that because she's a woman. And women can't do that. They should just accept that they're not as good as the men. Early in the morning, on August 18, 1925, Trudy stepped into the water at Cape Grisnez, France. The starting point for the swim. For almost 9 hours, she fought the strong current. Then, when Trudy had less than 7 miles to go, her trainer thought she had swallowed too much water and pulled her crying from the sea. Trudy did not give up her dream. She found a new trainer, and a year later, on Friday, August 6, 1926, she was ready to try it again. Oh, there he is, pulling her out of the water. So it sounds kind of like it might not have totally been her choice to get out of the water. Maybe it was. Maybe the man saved her life. It's hard to tell from the story. There she is getting ready to go. Trudy wore a red bathing cap and a 2-piece bathing suit and goggles that she and her sister Margaret had designed. To protect her from the icy cold water, Margaret coated Trudy with lanolin and heavy grease. The greasing took a long time, too long for Trudy. "For heaven's sake," she complained, "let's get started." Finally, at a little past 7 in the morning, she stepped into the water. "Gee, but it's cold," Trudy said. She is. Big boats. Trudy's father, her sister Margaret, her trainer, and a few other swimmers were on board a tugboat named Alsace. The boat would accompany Trudy to make sure that she didn't get lost in the fog and was safe from jellyfish, sharks, and from the channel's powerful currents. There was a second boat, too, with reporters and photographers on board. As the Alsace bobbed up and down in the choppy water, Margaret wrote in chalk, on the side of the boat. "This way, old kid." She drew an arrow that pointed to England. I don't know if you can see it there on the boat. It says, "This way, old kid." So whenever she would turn her head to take a breath, she would see that boat, knowing she was going the right direction still. Because I bet when you get really tired, it's hard to get turned around and go the wrong way. Start swimming the wrong direction. Oh, look at that. What is she doing? What does she have in her hands? Looks like she's eating chicken and drinking coffee. That's hilarious. Let's read what it says here. To entertain Trudy, Margaret and some of the others sang American songs, including the Star-Spangled Banner and East Side, West Side. Trudy said the songs kept her brain and her spirit good. At first, the sea was calm. Trudy swam so fast that her trainer was afraid she would tire herself out. He ordered her to slow down. Trudy refused. At about 10:30 in the morning, Trudy had her first meal. She floated on her back and ate chicken and drank beef broth. A while later, she ate chocolate and chewed on sugar cubes. Then she swam on. So it's a long enough swim that she's eating lunch. She stopped to eat food. I'm going to have a little snack while I'm swimming. At about 1:30 in the afternoon, it started to rain. A strong wind stirred the water. For a while, Trudy would swim forward a few feet, only to be pulled backward twice as far. By 6 o'clock, the tide was stronger. The waves were 20 feet high. The rough water made the people on board the Alsace and the news boat seasick. Trudy's trainer was sure she couldn't finish the swim. He told her to give up. "No, no," Trudy yelled over the sound of the waves. She kept swimming. In the next few hours, the rain and the wind became stronger and the sea rougher. At times, the rough water pulled the boats away out of Trudy's sight. She was scared. It was eerie being out there all alone. So you think about 20-foot waves. A 20-foot wave is taller than most people's houses. That's how big the waves got. And she was swimming still through this giant waves and this big storm. It was so big that the people on board the boats were getting seasick because they were going up and down so much. Now Trudy began having trouble kicking in the water. When the Alsace came close again, Trudy said her left leg had become stiff. Her trainer was frightened for her. He yelled, "You must come out." "What for?" Trudy shouted and kept swimming. Trudy continued to fight the tide and the constant stinging spray of water in her face. She knew she would either swim the channel or drown. She was so determined, she thought, if I don't make it, I'm going to die. I'd rather die trying than not make it. As Trudy neared Kingsdown on the coast of England, she saw thousands of people gathered to greet her. They lit flares to guide her to shore. At about 9:40 at night, after more than 14 hours in the water, Trudy's feet touched land. Hundreds of people, fully dressed, waded into the water to greet her. When she reached the shore, her father hugged Trudy and wrapped her in a warm robe. "I knew if it could be done, it had to be done, and I did it," Trudy said after she got ashore. "All the women of the world will celebrate." So she did it not just for herself, but for all the women in the world that were being told they couldn't do things like men. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Trudy swam the channel in just 14 hours and 31 minutes. She beat the men's record by almost 2 hours. 2 whole hours she beat it by. In newspapers across the world, Trudy's swim was called history-making. Reporters declared that the myth that women are the weaker sex was shattered and shattered forever. Trudy sailed home on aboard the SS Berengaria. After 6 days at sea, the ship entered New York Harbor. 2 airplanes circled and tipped their wings to greet Trudy. People on boats of all kinds rang their bells and tooted their horns to salute her. Foghorns sounded. So the whole world was celebrating this woman's accomplishment. How cool would that be? They climbed into an open car for a parade up Lower Broadway. An estimated 2 million people, many of them women, stood and cheered. They threw scraps of newspaper, ticker tape, pages torn from telephone books, and rolls of toilet paper. We wouldn't want to do that right now. We can't hardly find toilet paper anymore, can we? When her car arrived at the New York City Hall, Mayor Jimmy Walker praised Trudy for her courage, grace, and athletic prowess. American President Calvin Coolidge sent a message that was read at the ceremony. He called Trudy America's best girl, and she was. Gertrude Ederle had become a beacon of strength to girls and women everywhere. These are just some notes from the author with a picture of her. Okay. That's pretty amazing. So, America's champion swimmer, Gertrude Ederle. So, your task today is just to think about what things do you have to overcome, and maybe what women in your life have shown the strength that Gertrude had to do something that you thought couldn't be done maybe. You don't have to write a lot today, but I'd like to know, what is something that you connected with in this story? Is it the strong woman? Is it the fact that she overcame something that people told her she couldn't do? I'd love for you to write something back to me that just says something like, Mr. Wendt, one time I remember someone told me that I wasn't strong enough to do this, or that I shouldn't do this because I was a girl, or I couldn't do this because I was little, or I couldn't do this because I was maybe black or Hispanic, Father. And I want you to think about those things. So think about a strong woman that you know that you could tell me about that's been a great role model for you. Or think about a time when someone told you, or maybe someone you know, that they couldn't do something because of something that they were. And tell me that story. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.